Hi there, we're coming at you today from Asheville, North Carolina, ACE's location for the Eastern Branch, and today we're going to be talking about the safe operation of a brush cutter, otherwise known as a clearing saw. So the first things we're going to talk about today is your personal protective equipment for operating a clearing saw. What you're going to need to be wearing is long pants, all leather work boots and socks, and a long sleeve shirt with your sleeves rolled down. You're also going to need your hard hat with a face shield attachment. You're going to need hearing protection, eye protection, some all leather work gloves, and lastly, our trimmer trousers. Next, let's talk about the contents that you should find in your brush cutter bag. It's the responsibility of the crew leader or the project manager to be packing these before they go out on project. So you're going to want to have extra string line if your project calls for it. We've got a couple of different size gauges here. Depending on what you're cutting, it may be a pretty important decision whether you want something nice and thin here or something nice and thick like this 0.155. Take some extra string heads. You're going to want to take extra either woodcut blades or triangle blades or circular blades, depending on what you're cutting on your project. You're going to want a couple of different scrunches that are going to fit your tool. Also a good idea to have a Sharpie, a stop pin, which we'll talk about more later, gear grease, couple of rags for cleaning out gunk, a bastard file for sharpening our tri-blades. You're going to want plenty of extra parts, maybe some extra spark plugs, washers, nuts, just extra parts for your head attachments. Also important to make sure that you pack a round file if you're going to be using some of these circular cut blades. You might want to think about packing pliers to snip your string if you don't have a pocket knife on you. And we've always just got extra stop pins in here. Other good things that you might want to pack could include brushes or WD-40, depending on your needs. Alrighty, so next we're going to be talking about the primary parts of your brush cutter. Here at the ACE East Branch, we run a couple of different models of steel, so that's why you're seeing two machines in front of you. We're going to start here on the left-hand side. This is our fuel tank. Right here is our fuel cap. It's threaded just like a screw. It's got a little retaining cord there. Next, we've got our pull cord assembly with starter grip. Over here on the right is our muffler. Right in there is our muffler, our spark arrestor. This general orange area is your housing cover. Underneath this black cover is our carburetor hiding under there, and our air filter over here on the far side. Right here is our primer bubble. And down here, we've got our H and our L screws. Those are carb adjustment screws. Down here is our LA screw, otherwise known as our idle speed screw. And if we go around to the front of the machine, on this model here, you can easily access your spark plug by removing your rubberized spark plug boot. Under here is the clutch. These two orange knobs, these are known as the choke knob. We've got our throttle cable living inside this black tube. That throttle cable feeds into our bicycle handle. And on this style of bicycle handle, we've got our throttle lockout here. Here we've got our throttle trigger. Here's our stop button. This model is just a little bit different. You push the stop button forward, and then for startup procedures, you're going to pull that all the way back, squeeze the throttle interlock. It'll stay. Click it to disengage it. Here we've got a winged screw, and what that's going to do is loosen up our bicycle handle. You can move that around for your own comfort or for easy transport in the back of a vehicle. Just make sure you give it a nice clockwise turn to tighten it up. On the bottom here, a little less visible, but there are 2 screws. Again, you want to use a star scrunch. That's the style that steel takes. If you loosen those up, then this whole assembly can move up and down the drive tube. If you're a shorter person like myself, maybe you want to push it back a little closer to the power head. If you're a little taller, maybe you want to adjust it a little further out this way. And then right here, we've got a little clip. Show you how that works later. That's just going to clip right onto your harness. It's going to save your back, make operating this machine a lot more comfortable for you. Okay, so we have moved down to the opposite end of our brush cutter. The first thing I'm going to point out is this safety feature here. This is called our deflector guard. Another thing I want to point out on the deflector guard is, if you can see that right there, there's a little directional arrow that will show you which way your blade or mower head spins. Super important for if you're running a blade and you're putting on a blade. We'll talk more about that later. I'm going to also point out the deflector guard down here and this little black piece. This is called the skirt, and we use the skirt when we are running string line and we've got a mower head attached. The skirt has what's called a line limiting blade right here. That's going to keep your line from getting way too long and preventing it from entangling here around your head. The next piece we're going to talk about is right here. And first, we'll take off our nut. You'll need your stop pin. That gets placed into a little opening right there. You can see like that. Use your scrunch. That stop pin is going to keep this from rotating on me because this is reverse threaded. So right now I'm tightening it to go opposite and loosen. We're going to go to the right. So it's kind of counterintuitive. And again, that stop pin is keeping that from spinning separately on me. So I've got my nut off. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the rider plate. And then this is our thrust plate. I can take off the stop pin. There you see it. This is the rider plate. This is a washer. You can see these little grooves here in the rider plate. That's what's keeping it from spinning. That's what's stopping it for me. Something we see a lot is that the thrust plate has been forgotten to be put on, and I've seen this sitting on top with no thrust plate, and that's going to keep this spinning, and now I have no way to stop it from spinning, and it's a whole ordeal where we have to remove this entire apparatus to have access to the drive shaft. So please, I can't stress enough, don't forget your thrust plate. It's also important to point out that your thrust plate sometimes can be in 2 separate pieces. That's okay. They will work separately. You just place one right on top of the other. Over time, the metal does get worn down though, so you want to make sure you have a nice snug fit between this metal plate and this circular piece here. Another thing to point out that can come in separate pieces, I mentioned that washer earlier. Well, sometimes you might just have a rider plate all on its own, but sometimes you've got a rider plate with the washer already attached. So make sure you're familiar with exactly what you have. And in just a bit, we'll show you how to change out some blades and mower heads. Okay, so we're going to next talk about changing some of the head attachments on your brush cutter. First, let's start with some woodcut style blades. So with the tri-blade, meant for relatively skinny things, I'd say pinky size. Things that are hollow like bamboo or Japanese knotweed or reeds can handle that guy. Here we've got a circular woodcut blade with chainsaw tooth style teeth. Another circular woodcut blade. This guy, the teeth are tipped with carbide. I'd say something like this could handle about 1.5 inches, whereas this guy could handle about 3 inches. So let's go ahead and put on the carbide tip first. We've got our thrust plate. That's getting put on there first. Got my stop pin. Next is going to be the blade itself. If the blade isn't too worn, it might have a directional arrow on there for you, but keep in mind you've got this directional arrow as well. So with a blade like this, you want your teeth to be oriented in the correct direction. So I'm going to put it like this because I know the arrow is pointing that way, and then that sharp point of that tooth is going to spin this way. So next, I'm going to put on my rider plate, the one that's already got the washer attached. I'm going to stop it from spinning. It catches. Let's see. Next, I'm going to put on the nut. Snug it up as far as I can. And I'll grab my scrunch. Continue for the rest of the way. There we go. That stopped. That's good. Take out the stop pin, and we're good to go. Next, we'll put on a mower head. And this guy has already got some things outfitted. Got my stop pin. Righty-loosey. Remember, because it's reverse threaded. Just going to take off the washer. I'm going to leave my thrust plate on there. It's already got my attachment. Next. Start spinning counterclockwise to at least get it seated on the threads. Maybe. There we go. Stop pin. And just keep spinning until it's snug. My thruster plate is still moving. There we go. Voila. Okay, so next we're going to talk about restringing your mower head. So to get this cover off, you want to take your scrunch or your stop pin, or even a stick will work. You can see this little window here and here. What you're going to do is take your stop pin, push in on the side, push in on the side. Now it's loose. That window is just a viewing window into these little tabs that are on the side of this cover cap. And so now I have access to this spool, and I'm just going to spin it, and it's spring loaded right there. So by spinning it, I have released it because these tabs were stuck under a couple other little tabs that hold it in place. So now that that is loose, I'm going to get the amount of string that I need. I typically do 3 arms length. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. I'm going to cut that. And then I'm going to line up my ends. like so. So it's folded in half. I'm going to cut it again at that halfway point. Now I've got two separate pieces of string. Inside this little spool, you can see there's a couple of holes in there. So one string's going to fit into one hole, one's going to fit in the other. If you ever forget, there's a nice little drawing of an arrow here that shows you how you need to wrap it. So I put each of them into a hole. I'm going to bend it back on itself. During this process, you want to keep it nice and tight because as you spool it around, you run the risk of it popping out of your grasp, and then the string just goes everywhere and it's irritating. So we'll keep on spinning. So once you've got all your string line spooled around in your two little lanes, there are these nice little clips that you can stick them in, and they'll hold it for you. And just like before, there's a spring in the middle of here. You're going to push down, turn to your right, and line up some of those tabs underneath. There's four of them. There's a tab here, here, and here, and here. And once you've pushed down, spun it, they'll be seated under there. And now, I'm going to take them gently out of that little clip that it was being held in. Feed it in there, into our grommets, they're called. And remember, go slow, do it gently. You don't want it to become unspun on you. Feed them both through the grommet. Go back and grab your cover. Remember, these tabs push in. Line them up with those windows on the side. Slide them down. You'll hear a click. Tabs have fed through the window. Now you're good to go. It's a little long, but remember that limiting blade is going to cut those, so don't worry about that. We'll show you a little bit later when we operate one of these how this button works. When you push it down, slam it on the ground, it feeds more string line out for you. We'll show you that in just a little bit.